Oh, hello, hello. How's everybody doing today? Man, we've got some news to cover. There's the Zelenskyy drama around his suit in Polymarket and some sketchy stuff going on with Polymarket right now. I'm going to get through the details there. I'm going to talk about the news with the trade war. There's some crazy stuff happening there as well. And Ethereum. I think Ethereum is poised to have some pretty big moves. Man, Ethereum is looking pretty right now. I have to say. But the first story of the day, man, we're gonna talk about this Polymarket drama around Zelensky's suit. So there's a Polymarket bet about whether Zelenskyy would wear a suit by the end of July, and this is by the way, this is the uh, suit that we're talking about here. This is what's being disputed. Is this a suit? Is this not a suit? Okay. Um, there are a lot of media outlets that said that it was. Okay. So there ended up being $160 million that were bet on Polymarket over this. And there's really a lot of drama around it and how the voting works. Okay. So let me go over to this oracle they use that decides the outcome on these things. So UMA is an oracle that uses economic guarantees to secure markets. Basically, UMA token holders are an impartial arbiter of the outcomes of the relevant markets. So they can proceed with an entirely decentralized and trustless resolution mechanism. But here's the drama. Apparently, there's a lot of centralization when it comes to these token holders. So the UMA token holders are the ones that vote. Four whales own 40% of the supply, and they're talking about how they're basically communicating through messaging forums and deciding what to vote on. So there are a lot of people that are really pissed off here. Now, if you vote incorrectly, it slashes your stake by 0.1%, but you're getting 21% APR on UMA staking. So there's some people calling this out. Here's another person here. People are really upset about this. The chart shows that four wallets control 43% of the UMA voting power on Polymarket. So this has become a really big thing. And yes, the Zelenskyy suit is the one that has been drawing attention to it. But it's underlying. There's a big problem here, and people are really upset that just select few control what should be a decentralized betting platform. And it does appear that people are very upset with Polymarket. And I don't know, they might have to change the way they do this voting because they are getting a lot of criticism over this. But $160 million all over whether this man was wearing a suit or not. Kind of funny. Kind of funny stuff there. Man, I don't know. I like Polymarket because I do feel like the odds are generally pretty accurate. But if I had a lot of money on the line, I'd be pretty upset. There's also some rumors that some of the UMA token holders had bets on it, so there certainly would be a conflict of interest there. All right, in other news, well, if you don't have pre-check, which I highly recommend you should get, it sounds like one of the benefits of having pre-check was obviously shorter lines, but not having to take your shoes off. But it looks like they are going to be removing this at certain airports to start. But it does sound like you will no longer have to remove shoes, and it is something that they are going to look to expand nationwide in the near future. I thought this is some interesting background. It's been part of the airport experience since 2006. And it all happened with this guy, Richard Reed, that tried to ignite his homemade shoe explosives back in 2001, which is why this rule is put in place. But they apparently have ways of scanning now that, hey, you no longer have to remove your shoes. Again, I highly recommend getting pre-check. If you have a airline credit card, they normally reimburse you for that as well. All right, guys, I'm going to play this, and this is the last I'm going to talk about these floods down in Texas. I will say this much: it's a very sad situation. There are a lot of people, innocent people, children that passed away in this event. It's unfortunately being very politicized, which really sucks, honestly. On both ends, it's really disgusting how much it's been politicized, in my opinion. But I do want to play this because there's a lot of people out here saying that the weather was created, etc. So I want to play this clip, and then we'll put this to rest and move on. But I think it's important to get the truth out there because there's a lot of people who are spreading misinformation about this. But I thought this was an interesting report, so I'm going to play it.
Might have seen posts or videos connecting cloud seeding to what is happening in Texas. And then earlier tonight, the CEO of a weather modification company confirmed that planes in Texas did release silver iode into the atmosphere 2 days before the floods. But he also explained why he says scientifically it does not mean that the two events are connected. Watch this.
We're talking about like sub-centimeter amounts of precipitation, be it in snow or rain from every event, which in aggregate can mean hundreds of acre feet, which is very consequential for farmers and ecosystems, but cannot come close to causing flooding unto itself.
And NBC News climate reporter Chase Kane joins us now. Chase, any conspiracy always starts with like a thread of truth here. Can you explain the science? Like, what is cloud seeding, first off, and how is it being used in Texas?
Yeah, so cloud seeding is really this idea for farmers of like, hey, there's some moisture up there in the clouds. Is there a way that we can get it out of the clouds down here to the surface to help farmers? Because water vapor that's in the air needs something to grab onto, which is often like smaller than the tip of a pen. So you're thinking like pollens, particles of pollen or dust or even air pollution. So you see this graphic here. Basically what they do is they fly planes up there to give the water vapor something to grab onto. So it's a combination of silver iodide and salt, actually. And so the water vapor forms around that. Eventually it gets heavy enough and then falls to the surface of rain. So when that happens, we're talking really small amounts of rain. In fact, scientists have been debating for decades whether or not this is actually very effective to do. So even when it does work, Gotti, we're not talking about a lot of rain, certainly not the amount of rain that they saw in Texas last week.
And the timing of it, 2 days before, I mean, you know, again, anybody online that seems to be an expert these days would say, well, no, this is what, you know, started the flood or possibly like supercharged the soil. So it was hydrophobic. Like, well, take us through the timeline here.
Yeah, that's a really important point, Gotti, because this cloud seeding, it works within like 15 minutes, half an hour, maybe an hour, and then that's it. So that was done 2 days before. So the CEO saying this, other scientific research establishes that cloud seeding isn't going to trigger something like this, certainly not 2 days after they were doing it. They were only...
Okay, so I've seen all these posts. Everyone's like a weather expert now on X all of a sudden. Talking about how they did cloud seeding, it caused the flooding, etc. So I wanted to play that clip because apparently that's not the case. Okay, and on the other end, the people are saying that they're politicizing it, saying that the budget cuts caused the issues. Guys, like, this shouldn't be politicized. It's freaking gross, frankly, in my opinion, that it's being so politicized. Very unfortunate event. It was like a once in 100-year event, this flood that happened. So I think we should just, give our best wishes to the families, let them mourn, and stop politicizing it. That's all I'm going to say about that, and we'll put that to rest. In other news, the Jeffrey Epstein situation, the DOJ, we talked about this a little bit yesterday, says there's no evidence Jeffrey Epstein had a client list or blackmailed associates. They said they found no evidence that financier and convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein had a list or that he blackmailed anyone. This is not going away, guys. For one, Pam Bondi was talking earlier this year about how she promised to release documents from the Epstein investigation. She made public a small batch of files in February and said as part of the commitment to transparency and lifting the veil, the disgusting acts of Jeffrey Epstein. Well, now people are calling for Pam Bondi to step down. I think we'll probably hear more of that following this situation. You also have the fact that, not long ago, J.D. Vance was like, I can't wait to clean up D.C. by releasing the Epstein client list. Just not a good look overall. I don't know what's going on here, but I'm not buying it, and the people are not buying it, okay? And then when you have, situations where Alex Jones, guy's a maniac, but he's losing his mind. Watch this clip.
And this only happens every few years when something really, really bad happens or something. I mean, I'm physically gonna puke probably right now. My mouth is watering right now because I have integrity, and I just really need the Trump administration to succeed and to save this country. And they're doing so much good, and then for them to do something like this tears my guts out.
So Alex Jones is having a meltdown. People are having meltdowns. And now add the fact that this just happened within the last hour. Elon Musk pouring fuel on the fire. He says Steve Bannon is in the Epstein files. Okay, so this is not going anywhere, guys. I cannot believe what's going on with this. But potentially, Trump might be shooting back at Elon. I'm going to talk about with one of the tariffs he announced today, just within the last 45 minutes. Pretty wild stuff there. But check this out. Okay, so this is Netanyahu yesterday. Pretty wild. Let me play this clip.
One region after the other. So I want to present to you, Mr. President, the letter I sent to the Nobel Prize Committee. It's nominating you for the Peace Prize, which is well deserved, and you should get it.
Thank you very much. This I didn't know. Wow.
That's what I didn't know. Thank you very much. So Netanyahu submitted for Trump to get the Nobel Peace Prize. So there's been some talk about this for a while. That's absolutely wild. And then one other thing before we move on to the macro news and the trade situation. This was Trump talking about the Ukraine and Russia situation. So he has changed his tune quite a bit since a few months ago.
Planning to send more weapons to Ukraine?
We're going to send some more weapons. We have to. They have to be able to defend themselves. They're getting hit very hard now. They're getting hit very hard. We're going to have to send more weapons. Your defensive weapons, primarily, but they're getting hit very, very hard. So many people are dying in that mess.
All right. So Trump is going to be sending more support to Ukraine. They said mostly defensive weapons, but regardless, quite a change of tune from him. If you remember the whole blow up he had with Zelenskyy not long ago. And then who would have thought that Zelenskyy's suit would be in the middle of a $160 million poly market scandal? Man, what a crazy world we live in. Oh, how's everybody doing today? Hopefully y'all are having a fantastic day. Let's see. I interviewed the Rover team this morning. I'm going to be posting that interview in the next few days. Next Tuesday, I'm going to be hosting the High Mapper AMA, and then had a really, really good space this morning. I have a weekly space on DePIN. We had a really good discussion with Brandon from Conduit Network talking about what needs to happen for DePIN to take the next step forward, decouple from the market conditions, and really solidify itself as a legitimate sector in crypto. Kind of fix a lot of the problems we've had with the short-termism across crypto. So I'll pull that up here in a minute, but you guys should definitely check that out. But let's talk about the tariff situation because, man, it is like a reality TV show. Seriously, it is absolutely bananas what's happening right now, but to be expected. We've had plenty of drama this year, never any shortage of drama, that's for sure. And I'm gonna play this video because sometimes you gotta remind ourselves how did we get to this point. All right,
I'm telling you, these countries are calling us up, kissing my ass. They are dying to make a deal. Please, sir, make a deal. I'll do anything. Sir.
Why haven't we seen the kind of deals that he promised in the last 90 days?
Again, he didn't promise this. And when we send out the 100 letters to these countries, that will set their tariff rate. So we're going to have 100 done in the next few days. And
but that's not a deal. That's a threat.
No, that's the level. That's the deal. If you want to trade with the United States, this is.
But that's not a negotiation. That's just a
many of these countries never even contacted us. So
I'm telling you, these countries are calling us up.
Yeah. So I don't know how many of these countries were calling us up, begging us. And then this was just yesterday, I believe. Yeah, last night.
What happened to...
Look at Hexet's reaction in the background. It has me freaking dying.
Oh, we've spoken to everybody. We know it's all done. I told you, we'll make some deals, but for the most part, we're going to send a letter. We're going to say, welcome to the United States. If you'd like to participate in the greatest, most successful country ever. I mean, we're doing better than ever. We have, I don't think, and you're going to see these numbers soon. We've never had numbers like this. We've never had investment like this. We have more than 90. We're going to have much more than 90, but most of those are going to be sent a letter. This is exactly what I said. Now, we've made a deal with United Kingdom. We've made a deal with China. We've made a deal. We're close to making a deal with India. Others we met with, and we don't think we're going to be able to make a deal, so we just send them a letter.
Well, the letters are going out, guys. And yes, China, it looks like we do have a deal with UK, close with India, apparently. But here is the newest as far as the letters that have gone out so far. 14 countries. And here are the tariff rates. You have 35% ranging to most of them in the 20s to 30s, some at 40%. So pretty crazy. Now, here's my takeaway on this. These are countries that we don't have deals with yet. So the real question I have is this where things are going to stand? Because these don't go into effect until August 1st. So are they sending these out to kind of scare them, get them to the table to try to get something done really quickly before August 1st? Or are these actually going to go into effect? I have since the beginning thought that I'd hoped that we'd land somewhere in that 10% range. And this is also based on things that Scott Bessent said. And I think that 10% is something we can manage. These rates that we're seeing here, I don't know. That's a little bit wild. And I think some of it also has to do with the fact that China has been circumventing tariffs. This is not the first time we've seen this. And this is a really good breakdown. So China's exports to the U.S. fell 43% year over year in May. However, their total exports jumped 4.8% during the same period. So it's like, where are they sending these exports? They're not sending them directly to the U.S., but they are sending them through other countries. They send them through the EU, Southeast Asian nations, Vietnam. Okay, so like all of a sudden, their direct exports to us dropped significantly, 43%, and then surged in all these other countries. It's very obvious what's taking place right now. Okay, and I think that is why, they're putting these tariffs on other countries just to prevent China from doing this. Now, the big question, though, again, is where are we going to fall with these other countries? And that is what we have to see how that plays out. But he wasn't done. This just happened this morning, 26 minutes ago, just updated. He's threatening to put 200% tariffs on pharmaceuticals soon. Now, it is important to add context here. It said that they were not going to affect immediately, saying it'll give people about a year and a half for those to take place. Now, this is something that's important to note because we are very reliant on China for certain things that we shouldn't be. Rare earth minerals being one of them. It's going to take time for us to wean off of China because they have the facilities to basically deal with the rare earth minerals. It's not that they're actually mining the rare earth minerals. They are, but in many cases, other countries sending them to them. They have the refineries. The other thing, though, is pharmaceuticals. Like a lot of the precursors, a lot of pharmaceuticals were very reliant on China. If we are in a war with them at any point in time, that would be a huge problem. Okay, so we do need to wean off of them. So I understand like strategic tariffs like this, where it's like, hey, we need to strategically produce these in the U.S., and we have a time period that's realistic to do so. That makes sense. Saying like, oh yeah, well tomorrow 40% tariffs on this country, or this. Now all of a sudden, Trump's talking about a 50% tariff on copper out of freaking nowhere. And I'm wondering, I put this comment below. I've talked about copper actually being a really good investment several times over the last few months. Because there's going to be shortages of copper in the future with electric vehicles and developing countries building out electrical infrastructure. But Tesla is very reliant on copper. And I'm wondering, with Elon continuing to poke the bear, is this something in response to him? I don't know. Here's what I do know, though. We got this God candle out of copper as soon as that happened. So copper is something I've been talking about for some time. I think it's a very solid investment looking out in the long term. Copper is going to be very necessary. All right. So how is the market reacting to all of this? Well, the 10-year treasury is a great way to determine because with the resurgence in all these tariffs, inflation becomes a concern again. And if inflation is a concern, then the likelihood of Jerome Powell dropping rates diminishes, right? So that's why you'd start seeing this 10-year treasury rate tick up, which is exactly what we've seen. A lot of this is around the renewed concerns about the tariffs. Gosh, it's exhausting, guys. Well, I hope we land at like 10% with most of these countries. We'll see. But this is a big deal with all the debt that we have coming due. We've got to get that down. The other thing we need to keep an eye on is the 30-year of Japan, guys. Japan. If you remember, a year ago, we saw the massive market crash in August of 2024 because of the reverse carry trade. This is still a huge threat that we need to be aware of. Japan has kept their debt, their yields really low. This has allowed people to go over, borrow yen in Japan, moving into other currencies like the US dollar, basically getting access to cheap to near really free capital and invest in their stock market. What happened last year is this yield on the Japan 30-year treasury started to go up, and people were forced to sell their stocks to cover their loans. And we had the unwinding of that reverse carry trade. Well, if this continues to tick upward, that could become a problem. Okay, so we need to keep an eye on the Japan yield and what they do there. Will they continue to suppress it? What they've been doing is just having the Bank of Japan print money, creating demand for their treasuries to keep the rate down. Will they continue doing that? Can they continue doing that? The other thing I'll point out, the CEO of NVIDIA has been selling a shit ton of stock, guys. That's not normally a great sign. $115 million worth in the last 2 weeks. When you start seeing smart money sell like that, doesn't always mean that's a bad sign, but generally you follow smart money. And that's a lot. $115 million. That's substantial selling. Two other stories before we move over to the crypto. Del Monte Foods, who's a 138-year-old canned goods giant, is filing for bankruptcy. I've seen a lot of reports on X. They're like, it's the tariffs. But if you read through the whole report here, they talk about how they miscalculated their bet on the COVID boom. They basically ramped up production, and then they had a lot of inventory sitting on shelves, and they ended up having to write that off or sell at a substantial loss. Also, interest rates went up. So, they had to raise $1.2 billion in debt. Well, interest rates have been crippling companies. So that was the main reason. Also, I thought this was kind of interesting looking at trends in the U.S. Canned vegetables account for 23% of total U.S. vegetables available, down from 30%. Of course, that was 5 decades earlier, but still, we have seen a decline. And then also canned fruit, 11 to 5%. So halving of that market share there. So consumers are eating less out of cans. Go figure. They want fresher, healthier options. Understandable. Also inflation. They're trading down for cheaper store brand alternatives. But they do mention tariffs had a role. Okay, so 50% tariffs on steel and aluminum put pressure on margins. So this is kind of crazy. 80% of U.S. canned grade steel is sourced from abroad. Wow. Regardless, though, they've been around a long time. They're looking for someone to buy them out. And then one other, this is a big story, I think. The race for AI talent. I saw an article last week where they were talking about how the complete packages for some of the top AI talent, they're paying $100 million to get some of these people. Meta just recruited Apple's head of AI models. Their top employee on their AI models. And apparently, Apple has been losing a lot of talent recently. And sources are telling Bloomberg that it might be the first of many in Apple's troubled AI unit. But one thing's for certain, these companies are willing to pay and pay big for the top AI talent. They see what's coming, and that is the next big move for sure. AI is growing. Whew. Let's talk some crypto, guys. How's everybody doing out there? Getting a lot of notifications. Guys, where's Bitcoin at? 109,000. Let's take a look here. $109,000. Even with all the tariff stuff going on, all that stuff, like this consolidation in this range has been going on since May. Man, you have to think we're going to break out at some point. I think we could go much higher, but 109,000, man, it's crazy, and the market just doesn't seem to care. That's the craziest part to me. Is that retail is just non-existent right now. And Bitcoin's sitting at 109,000. I bet people just don't even know that that's taking place right now. Big day overall, though, in the crypto market. Oh, in the last hour, things have dropped. I don't know what happened. Trump probably tweeted something. But today, man, crypto coin, CRO is the big winner here. Suburban, my boy Suburban's watching. He's happy about that. That's a big move. 19%. Woo! But you got to love it, man. And on the week, we've been up. Look at Bonk at 60% on the week. Wow. We are starting to see some moves, guys. So we're starting to see some green in the markets. It's lovely to see. We have another company that is creating a Bitcoin reserve and going public. We've seen a lot of companies start to do this, but there's Reserve One, newly formed. So it's first of its kind digital asset management firm. Inspired by the proposed U.S. strategic Bitcoin reserve, but they are looking to go public. They raised $1 billion. Wow. In other news, Jack Dorsey, using inspiration for Bitcoin, he created a messaging app that uses Bluetooth. It's a peer-to-peer network. So it's a mesh network, kind of like what Streamer does, where you can send messages. You don't need access to the internet. Basically, if you're, let's see what the range is again. It's in here somewhere. 30 meters. So if you're in 30 meters of another person, it'll message through their device, then go through through them to another device, and it all is encrypted as it goes through the peers within the network until it gets to its end user. But it says, according to the white paper, the network would be fully decentralized with no central servers, accounts, emails, phone numbers to register, infrastructure dependencies. It messages where exist only in device memory by default, not stored on a centralized database, and has end-to-end encryption. So pretty cool stuff there, using a peer-to-peer network to send messages through Bluetooth. Wow. Pretty wild. I'm sure we'll hear more about that. All right, let's talk about Ethereum, guys. Ethereum, I think, is poised to maybe have some pretty big moves coming up here. BlackRock has been quietly accumulating, and we've been talking about it, but I didn't realize they had 1.5% of all Ethereum at this point. So $175 million worth in the last 12 months. And you start to look at some of this other stuff. You have the NASDAQ tower saying ETH looks good here. Some attention, guys. You also look at the exchange supply is dropping. And it's worth noting, because now we're proof of stake, 30% of the supply is locked. So we could see some pretty big moves coming. You have 5 Ethereum treasury companies now holding 240,000 ETH, and they seem to just be holding. SharpLink Gaming being the biggest holder there, $500 million. Wow. All signs point to Ethereum having a major bounce, sitting at 2,600 right now. How high will it go? I don't know. But I don't know. I think a lot of people have been sleeping on Ethereum. A lot of people wrote it off earlier this year. But you need to look at the institutional adoption. There's a lot of layer 2s being used by institutions, which does roll into Ethereum. But Here's where I think we could see the biggest catalyst. We've been talking about this for a while, and this is the altcoin ETFs. We have seen a large number of submissions for ETFs, and you can see the different coins here. You have Ethereum, you have Near, BNB, Sui, you have Tron, you even have some meme coins in there, Avalanche, Aptos. Like, guys, it looks like we're going to start seeing approvals on these altcoin ETFs sooner than later. And there's some couple articles just today about this. Trump Media and Technology Group is looking to launch an exchange-traded fund that will invest in multiple crypto tokens, including Bitcoin, Ether, Solana, and Ripple. So they're looking to launch an ETF fund with different altcoins. There's another article here from Reuters. New U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission's guidance on disclosure requirements for exchange-traded products tied to cryptocurrency marked the first step toward approval of dozens of applications of ETFs linked to everything from Solana and XRP to even Trump's meme coin. Do you know how much money is going to be coming in once these things get approved? Think about all the people that like don't know shit about crypto. They're like, hey, yeah, I would like to get exposure, but I don't want to have to deal with crypto wallets. I don't want to have to deal with decentralized exchanges, paying fees to Coinbase. Like, what is that? It's still, I mean, we have to remember, this is still a foreign language for a lot of people. All of a sudden, they have these ETFs, they can get exposure to alts. That's going to bring in a lot of new capital, guys. And that is, I think, what could be, well, that along with Crypto Week, we have legislation coming through, guys. And this is July 14th to 18th. We have this Clarity Act, the Anti-CBDC, and the Genius Act. We also have the infrastructure bill. Not infrastructure bill, the capital structure bill. Y'all, there's regulatory clearance coming. There's altcoin ETFs coming. Bitcoin's sitting at $109,000. Ethereum's ready to explode. I do believe Q3 and Q4 could be fun. We could see a major resurgence. Will DePIN have a major rebound? I think it could. Now, of course, we need the macro environment to work with us here. We need Trump to stop tweeting crazy stuff. But y'all, I think things could be shaping up. Oh, we'll have to see. Let's talk about some DePIN, guys. Let's talk about some DePIN. DePIN market cap sitting at $27.5 billion. So it is moving back up again. It's not where it was, but it is moving back up. We had this DePIN report. They're talking about how the space has been getting a lot of attention. But check out the fundraising activity. VC activity, and I know not everyone likes VCs. I know that for a fact. I had a conversation about that earlier today, but VC capital activity DePIN has been strong since early 2024. VCs have backed over 150 projects, signaling broad conviction in the ecosystem's long-term scalability and real-world impact. A total of $744 million, at least. 165 plus disclosed deals, 89 plus undisclosed deals, all going back just since the beginning of 2024. So there's a lot of money pouring into the DePIN space. Things have obviously not been performing super well price-wise this year, but the building is taking place. And I think this is a good job of talking about this. Baby Billy, he's got some fun tweets. But he's talking about the interesting supply-demand dilemma facing helium mobile right now. And we have the demand side growing, but we're actually, for the first time, seeing trouble on the supply side. And this is something very different than what we've seen in the past. If you remember the early days of helium, we almost got to 1 million IoT hotspots in like a year and a half. We went from like 17,000 to 1 million. There was no demand. You know, that was the big problem. There's no revenue at the time, or very little. And that was the big issue. It's like, okay, we can use DePIN to build out supply, build out these networks, but like, is there going to be any usage on them? That's the problem. Where's the revenue? We're now seeing revenue, and it's to the point where helium's like, hey, we need to get more coverage. That's why they have that grant program. They're trying to get more coverage. So man, what a difference a few years can make. Amir, the CEO, is talking about the big three telcos report their Q2 earnings in the next few weeks. Helium Mobile had 155,000 signups in Q2. Do we think any of the big three had bigger prepaid numbers in the same period? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But if not, could that put Helium on the map of more people in the Web 2 space? Maybe. Some news out of HiveMapper today. Another customer announcement. Man, they've been pushing these out left and right. Volkswagen is that their Volkswagen's autonomous vehicle subsidiary has selected B Maps, powered by HiveMapper Spatial Intelligence Services. So B Maps is taking the data, developing products, and selling them. Says robotaxis, HiveMapper are a match made in heaven. Yeah, I think autonomous vehicles are going to use HiveMapper data for sure. I think there's a lot of people that are like, yeah, like what about Rover? Yeah, like I think personally, and there's been a little bit of drama between HiveMapper and Rover, and they've been going back and forth on X. Not necessarily directly calling each other out, but like calling each other out. Ario's been talking about how LiDAR doesn't scale. Look, I don't see the animosity between these two groups. And I interviewed Rover this morning, and they're like, yeah, like HiveMapper is a great project. I agree. I think they can probably complement each other. I don't think they're in direct competition. Maybe there's some overlap, but I think their data sets can actually complement each other quite well. And I think they're both going to be really valuable data sets, frankly. Speaking of HiveMapper, this went out. I am hosting their AMA next Tuesday at 11 Central Time. Or sorry, no, this is 12 p.m. PST. Oh, good. I can have my space next week then. I misread this. So that would be 2 o'clock. If my timing's right. 2 o'clock Central Standard Time on Tuesday. So we'll be covering a lot of stuff. We'll be covering the shipment schedule. We're talking about the B rewards. They just put a fix out there, did an airdrop for people that weren't getting rewarded correctly. There's 4 new map improvement proposals that are, some of them will be passed by then, but we'll go through those details, the thought process behind that, as well as customer announcements and a plethora of other questions. So make sure to set your reminders there. So that'll be fun to have that discussion with Ario. I also did put a video out about the 4 MIPs. So if you haven't, go and check that out for sure. Also, we had a space this morning. I mentioned this. I highly encourage you to check this out. We had Brandon on. So Brandon, follow him too, Brandon Baker. He's super, super sharp. We talked about the state of DePIN, what needs to happen for it to be really solidified as a sector that not only just relevant, but has sustainability, okay, and can actually be looked at from Web 2 people and draw interest. And he is founder of Conduit Network, so follow them too. They're doing some really cool stuff over at Conduit. I'm actually going to be doing an interview with him pretty soon here. But yeah, definitely listen to this. There's some really interesting takes. I mean, we talked about some of the problems with the mindset around DePIN, how it's still very much tied to the broader crypto market and altcoins, what needs to happen to change that, but also the tokenomics and the valuations of DePINs. And I think some ways that we probably need to shift our mindset there and how we're looking at these projects. But all in all, very encouraging. I think that things are very exciting. The outlook looks really good for DePIN. And I think once the market rebounds, we're going to see a lot of these projects probably do quite well, really. And we've been covering a lot of them. I'm hoping to get my final edits done. I'm going to get that video posted because I did DePIN Week 2 weeks ago on my live streams and covered a ton of projects. So I want to get that out and on my channel with chapters so you can skip around to different projects. It's been crazy busy. But man, appreciate you all. Hopefully you liked the stream. I'm going to be on. I'll be back tomorrow and Thursday. I'm in Chicago for the foreseeable future. I was traveling quite a bit, but looking forward to getting on here daily again. covering all the news of the day, all the pertinent news, everything from global news to macro news to crypto in DePIN. All right, y'all. Have a fantastic Tuesday. I will see y'all tomorrow. Peace.